When I look back now, it's strange how quietly the day began. No warnings, no tremors, no sign that my family was about to fracture beyond repair. Just the soft hum of morning, the smell of coffee drifting from the kitchen, and the illusion that everything was fine. Then Kevin, my son-in-law, stepped into the living room and shattered that illusion with a single sentence. "You need to decide today," he said. "Either you move out, or things are going to get complicated." At first, I thought I'd misheard him. Move out? From my own home? The house had been mine long before he ever came into the picture. My daughter and Kevin had moved in after their wedding, and I'd gladly given them space, even helped with the down payment. It wasn't perfect, but we made it work. Or so I thought. But there he was, standing over me with his arms crossed, pretending this was some rational discussion, when in truth it was a power play. The way he said, "decide," made my stomach tighten. I didn't need to look at my daughter to know she was in the doorway behind him, silent. I could feel her eyes, filled with guilt, maybe even fear, but she said nothing. That silence hurt more than his words ever could. I asked him, calmly at first, what this was really about. He said his father was moving in temporarily and that they needed privacy. My room, apparently, was the most convenient sacrifice. "You've been here long enough," he added. "You've got savings, right? Maybe it's time you found your own place." I looked at my daughter. "Is this what you want too?" She looked away. Her hands trembled, but she didn't speak. That was my answer. In that moment, something broke, not loudly, not dramatically, but deep inside like a quiet snap in the heart. I realized that the woman standing before me wasn't the little girl I raised anymore. She was someone else now, someone who'd learned to survive by keeping quiet. So I did what any mother who's been cornered would do. I straightened my back, nodded, and went to my room. No yelling, no begging, just quiet resolve. As I packed my suitcase, the air felt heavier with every folded shirt and every photograph I decided not to take. I didn't want them to see how much I was shaking. I didn't want them to see the tears gathering in my throat. When I closed the zipper and looked around one last time, I whispered to myself, this isn't the end. Not for me. Then I walked out the front door, didn't look back. The first night was the hardest. I checked into a modest motel on the outskirts of town, the kind with flickering signs and rooms that smelled faintly of disinfectant. I sat on the edge of the bed and just stared at the wall, trying to understand what had just happened. How had I gone from being the family's anchor to being their burden? But beneath the heartbreak, there was something else, a calm, icy determination. I had a plan forming in the back of my mind, one I wasn't ready to say out loud. Because the thing about betrayal is, once it happens, the pain doesn't disappear. It transforms into clarity. And clarity is power. 3 days later, I woke up to the shrill sound of my phone vibrating across the nightstand. I rubbed my eyes and checked the screen, 111 missed calls. All from my daughter. My heart skipped. For a second, I thought something had happened. Maybe an accident, maybe an emergency. But when I finally answered, it wasn't fear I heard in her voice. It was panic. "Mom, please, we need to talk." Kevin didn't mean what he said. "Just come back, okay? Please." I stayed quiet. Not because I wanted to be cruel, but because I needed her to understand that actions have consequences. She'd stood by in silence while I was pushed out of my own home. Silence, after all, is a form of agreement. After a moment, I said, "I'm fine. I'll be in touch when I'm ready." And I hung up. It was the first time in years I'd chosen myself over them. Over the next few days, I buried myself in work. I run a small consulting firm. Nothing glamorous, but kept me busy and gave me purpose. That week, I had a business meeting scheduled with one of our newer partners, a tech startup that my company had been mentoring. Ironically, the person I was vouching for in that meeting was Kevin's cousin, Mark, a quiet, ambitious young man who reminded me of the person Kevin could have been if arrogance hadn't eaten him alive. My colleagues didn't trust Mark. "He's too close to your family," they warned. "Don't let sentiment cloud your judgment." But loyalty has always been my weakness, so I vouched for him anyway. "He deserves a chance," I said. Still, as I sat there, trying to keep the meeting professional, my mind wandered back to my daughter's silence. The empty space at my dinner table. The 111 missed calls that said everything words couldn't. The irony wasn't lost on me. Here I was, defending someone's potential while my own family had treated me like an inconvenience. It was a strange kind of heartbreak, one that bled quietly into every conversation, every polite smile. That evening, as I sat at my motel desk typing up reports, my phone buzzed again. This time, it wasn't a call. It was a message, a single photo. My granddaughter, Emma, sitting on her bed, holding the stuffed bear I gave her for her 5th birthday. Her smile, wide and toothy, filled the screen. Underneath, a caption from my daughter. She misses you. No apology. No explanation. Just that. I stared at the photo for a long time. My chest ached in a way words couldn't describe. I loved that little girl more than life itself. But I couldn't pretend everything was fine. Not after what happened. That's the cruel thing about family. Love doesn't always fade when trust does. Sometimes it just sits there, raw and stubborn, forcing you to carry both pain and affection at once. But instead, I wanted to reply. I turned off my phone. I wanted to tell her that I missed her too. Not yet. Because forgiveness without accountability isn't love, it's surrender. The next morning, I finalized a few decisions. I met with my attorney to discuss my share of the house, the finances, and the legal implications of what Kevin had done. She smiled when I told her I was ready to move forward. "You've got more leverage than you think," she said. And she was right. Kevin's ultimatum had pushed me to reclaim something I'd forgotten: control. Over my home, over my business, over my peace. A few weeks later, I closed a major deal with that tech startup, the one everyone doubted. It turned out Mark was sharper than anyone gave him credit for. We landed a 6-figure partnership that strengthened my company's position, and for the first time in months, I felt proud again. When word got back to Kevin's side of the family that I was thriving, that I wasn't broken, the calls and texts started again. Apologies, excuses, invitations. But I didn't respond. Not yet. Some silences are sacred. Then one evening, I received another photo of Emma. This time, she was drawing something at the kitchen table. In the corner of the picture, barely visible, was a small sign of hope, a letter addressed to me in her clumsy handwriting. I zoomed in and saw the words, "I love you, Grandma. Come home soon." That's when I allowed myself to cry, really cry. Not from anger this time, but from something softer, love that still existed, tangled with boundaries that finally made sense. I didn't go back to that house, and I didn't let guilt pull me into old patterns. Instead, I invited my daughter and Emma to visit me on my terms in my space. The first few meetings were awkward, hesitant but real. My daughter apologized eventually, not with grand gestures or long speeches, but with quiet actions. She listened. She showed up. She tried. Kevin, on the other hand, never did. And that was fine. Some relationships don't need closure. They need distance. Now, months later, my life is peaceful. I bought a small apartment overlooking the river, decorated it with things that make me happy, not things that make me feel obligated. I work when I want, rest when I need, and see Emma every other weekend. Every now and then, I think about that day, the ultimatum, the silence, the betrayal. But I don't feel anger anymore, just gratitude. Because that day, I didn't lose my family. I lost my fear of losing them. Kevin thought he was giving me a choice, stay under his rules or leave with nothing. What he didn't realize was leaving was the first step toward everything I'd been missing: self-respect, freedom, and peace. He may have called 111 times, but I only needed one answer. No. Sometimes, revenge isn't about destruction or payback. It's about choosing yourself, quietly, firmly, and without apology. It's the kind of revenge that doesn't need an audience, because the best justice is peace that no one can take from you again.